Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. This is a call to order of the City of Oregon City Library Board meeting for April.
Still April.
So the meeting is called to order. The folks that are with us, the full board, Cynthia Andrews, Heidi Blackwell, Bill Carton, and Nick Dierkman are via Zoom. So, Reskovich and Larry Osborne are here, and Greg and Denise, of course. And before we get on to the agenda, we want to introduce Scott Archer, the new Parks and Recreation Director. God bless you. Since we're sitting in the middle of a city park, welcome.
Thank you. Really glad to be able to say hello to you. Unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole meeting tonight. I had told Greg I would love to come and say hello, but I have another commitment as well. So yeah, I'm the kind of the new old Parks and Recreation Director. Right. Basically a similar position to what I held with the city a number of years ago for about 12 years. And then did some other things, continued my public service, but this opportunity came up and it was just, I wanted to come back and serve Oregon City as hopefully kind of my final part of my career. Just have a lot of real strong connections here, and both on the personal and the work side. So, and you know, with Greg and I worked together for a few years in Clackamas County, and so I think we have a really good connection there. So yes, I've got the background and the knowledge of the importance of this being in a city park and
surrounded by dying trees.
all the easy things to deal with. So, but yeah, I look forward to working with you all. I'm happy to come back as needed to let you ask me questions or talk about issues that are of importance if that's ever of need. I'm available to do so, and I know there's lots of crossover between library and Parks and Recreation, and I think Greg and I will have a good working relationship on that to be able to make sure that we're doing the best we can by Oregon City for sure. So,
Great.
So yeah, just hello and thank you for letting me be here.
Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Is there anything like burning that you want to let me know about right now that I can take with me and process and come back with, or even maybe quickly respond to? I don't have to leave in like 2 minutes. I just a little bit at the beginning here, and then I can say.
Just a curiosity, really. What triggers the fountain, the kids' fountain? I mean, what temperature or what weather circumstance?
I need to talk to our staff before I say that in a public meeting. I don't want to commit them to anything. My recollection was that it was kind of seasonally dependent on when looking at weather patterns and when things kind of started making sense. I knew it. My recollection from the past was that we would typically kind of look at Memorial Day weekend as maybe an opening for any of the splash pads. So I don't know if that's still the case, but I'll find out about that.
I was just curious.
I think that was the norm in the past, but I don't know whether that has shifted. So I just want to be careful to say I'm not sure.
In the past few years, they've opened it literally depending on the weather, but according to our team's check here, we've had call number 784 today from the public asking.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's always
784.
Yeah, sure, that's an exaggeration, but it probably feels like that.
probably does.
Yeah.
Well, from your time here before and where you were at Salem, that you were in?
Salem and actually, yeah, anyway, yes.
I would just be curious on just some thoughts and things that you are, think could be possible in implementing in Oregon City, or just some, things that in the short term and long term that you're passionate about.
Sure. Well, I think there's, we've got this interesting blend of the history and then the forward-looking in Oregon City, and that's really, I think, one of the most, despite Oregon City is so special and unique, right, is we have those things, and there's growth and there's, needs in the community. At least early on, what I'm thinking about a lot and kind of learning from the city and learning about what needs to happen is sort of taking kind of like, there's been, some park development and some things have happened, and we've been trying to keep up with the needs of the community. Of course, it's all dependent on funding. We all know how that goes. But it's really, I think we're at a kind of a a big point of like now where do we go for the next, like say over the 10-year period. We the Parks and Recreation system-wide master plan update has just been completed, and actually it's going to go through a kind of a final formal adoption in the very near future. And you know, that's like the big kind of what are we doing as a whole community with Parks and Recreation, and that's going to have some, you know, pretty big goals and aspirations for the community. What do we do with some of our existing facilities, the pool, and making changes at Clockman and implementing this master plan that's been done for a number of years. And serving in our local neighborhoods. How do we deal with our backlog of maintenance in our existing parks? A lot of this really just comes back to funding. And the other big thing is that I think is on the radar is talking about what we're going to do for the pool life is coming to its end. It's probably, you know, we've done a good job as a city over time to keep it running. But that is in pool age, that's an old facility. And I know that there's been, I understand a desire expressed to maybe look at, do we build something that's more modern, an aquatic and recreation facility or something to that effect? And that's a really, really big aspiration, but I have worked on things like that. And, you know, so I'm really looking forward to having those conversations and seeing what the community wants us to do.
Sorry.
So yeah, that's kind of a quick answer to it. There's probably more to that. Just kind of relearning like what's going on here, and you know, I think I have a pretty good idea of that. Thanks for the question. Thank you. Okay. Have a great meeting, and again, open invitation to Greg. You can ask me back if you have something specific you want to talk about, or you know, I think there's always conversations here with this building and the location. What a beautiful place. Thanks so much.
Hey, Greg,
Yes.
the sound is really bad.
Yeah, Bill has been texting me. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out.
I think it was my books in the wrong place.
Is that any better now? No, still the same.
Seems the same.
Seems the same. All right.
That's better. That's getting better.
Yes. What changed?
I'm not sure.
You moved your hand. Keep your hand.
Yeah, David moved his hand. So
It's not the board.
David's channeling energy in a very specific
It's like,
way.
remember the old rabbit ears on your television?
That's right.
You know, you have to foil around it sometimes and, you know, it tip them and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So,
Is that better?
That's much better. Much better.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, David, for your exemplary
You're welcome.
service. in the library board.
Let the aura be with you. Okay, let's just go through the minutes quickly, and then I want to change something before we get to your report, Greg.
Okay.
So could I have any review of first the minutes of January 22nd? Sorry that there were three of them. We knew that this was going to get carried over. Any changes, any updates, any corrections?
No.
If not, motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the January meeting minutes as submitted.
Great. Second, please.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes of the February meeting, 28th. Same thing. Any corrections or additions? Unheard. Motion, please.
I'll move to approve the February
Okay, thank you.
2025 minutes as
And a second, please.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And and now we have the minutes of the library budget subcommittee meeting, and Bill and Nick and I attended that, and I'll move to approve those minutes as reported. And second by, yeah, okay, favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, good. Well, before we get to three, I just wanted to make a statement about something. As you'll see, there's a board vacancy coming up, and that vacancy is because Nick is leaving the community and moving to Indiana. It seems to be a popular place for Oregonians to be moving to lately, in the library world. And I just want to thank him. He's ending his second term as in the board. He's served on LDAC. He's been on the library budget committee. He's been an ambassador for the library. He's worked on the disability program. I mean, this man has dedicated years of service to this institution, and I want to personally thank him. And we're going to have a little gift for him shortly, just to honor his commitment and his work. So, here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for those kind words. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, good. Well, this is his last meeting, and so we'll get to the vacancy issue in a few minutes.
And if I may, I just want to second everything David has said. Nick knows. Nick's one of my favorite people in the world. So I'm very happy for him that he'll be somewhere. He wants to be close to family. But just to echo what David said, his service to library service in Clackamas County and in Oregon City has been exemplary. We have been able to make so much progress over the years Nick has been involved. And Nick just brings a very steady, logical, rational approach. I have very much appreciated, especially at some of our county meetings, there can be some heat and it's very easy for people to get off track. And Nick has always been very good about helping the group focus and just say, what are we trying, what's the goal here? What are we trying to do? And I can't say enough nice things about Nick either. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you. All right, library director's report.
Okay, thank you, David. I remember what I put in there. So the first, I'll go through this, and there's one thing that just came through about an hour and a half ago, so I did not have a chance to put it in there, but rather than waiting until next month, I will talk about it now. So I guess first, are there any questions on stats or anything that was put in there? It does not appear so. Okay. I think, we'll get to it in budget. There was something that did not make it into the packet. I'll make sure I get it in the next packet. We did get our second library district distribution since we last met. As a reminder, this year is the first year the county will be doing the 3 distributions. So we weren't quite sure how those were going to come in. So here were the nominations that were given. The way the county went about this is, as an example, they went to the library directors group and said, who would you nominate? And they went to the city managers group and said, who would you nominate? And they went to the mayor's group and said, who would you nominate? And so all those nominations went to the county. The county had a process by which they made some selections. So these were the nominations, and this is the final list. Or the list that was approved by the county. And yes, there is not an Oregon City representative on that group, which I'm a little disappointed by, but I also understand there were limited spots. So I can assure this group that I will be at every meeting. These will be public meetings. I will be there. I am not, I'm pretty good at getting my opinion in there. So I don't think we will, I would have preferred that Oregon City had a seat at the table, but that's not how it played out. So.
Can you remind me what this group is
That's what I was gonna ask.
representing or their role?
What are they doing?
So their role is, we tried to do this 5 years ago before COVID hit. So there's always been at the county level, lots of discussion about, it comes down to 3 things. How much money, does the library, what services should the library district provide, going forward?
Yeah.
How much money do you need in order to be able to do that? And how do you govern the district? And especially with some of the complaints or issues that certain stakeholders have, is there a way to rectify that?
Yeah.
So the original task force 5 years ago was meant to take a stab at making some recommendations for here's what the future of the library district should be. This is the revitalization of that effort in a much smaller, more focused way. So I believe this group will come out with some recommendations to the county commissioners, like here's what the next steps should be. I'm perfectly comfortable saying that at the end of the day, the goal of all this is, I personally think, should be that a ballot measure gets put on the ballot for a successor library district with a much higher rate, because 39 cents per thousand is not sufficient for operations capital and everything else that libraries are trying to do.
That's the key, and in all likelihood, there'll be a consultant that'll be engaged in order to get that ready. And I don't think it's gonna happen fast enough, so, yeah. Any questions about that? It's a bit disappointing, but we'll be there. I'll probably be at those meetings as well, assuming that they're scheduled wisely. Okay,
That's really unfortunate that we don't have a rep on it.
yeah.
That is unfortunate.
It's all right. We'll be there.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, again, if the work gets done and I can at least tell you, looking at the names, especially the library directors, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
We know what needs to be done to preserve sustainable library service for everybody in Clackamas County going forward. So I'm perfectly confident in having my library director colleagues from Canby and Lake as we go on there. They're going to do a great job.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Greg? No, okay, thank you. Any public comment?
No.
No public comment. Okay, so we have a board vacancy sort of immediately, and I met with Mayor McGriff about a week ago to talk about a number of things. One of which was this, and I asked whether we could move forward sort of our second candidate from the last thing rather than opening this up again. And she was totally happy doing that because she participated in the interview. So she was zoomed in. So I'm going to suggest that we encourage Lori Spinogel to take on that role. Greg, you've met with her, you've spoken with her. We thought she might be here tonight.
I just got an email. Oh, she got held up at work. Let me send her the Zoom link real quick.
Well, that I would support that because it's how I got on the board.
Me too, Ed.
I'm glad it's being filled quickly.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And there's only, I don't know, 8 months left on the term, so you'll have
That's right.
another chance. That position's going to come up for to be filled at the point.
That's right. But Denise said basically that if the board agrees that she'll endorse that. So,
We were very high on her. We just were valuing Nick's experience so much, and remember, we had that discussion, where can we find another?
Lisa, actually. It was
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, we agree. I think she'd be a great person.
The other point is that that position is the at-large position, so that person is to represent the whole the whole service area, both and both with the unincorporated and the city. So just to point that out.
Yes.
And Nick isn't serving in any other, advisory.
He is, he's been on LDAC.
Right.
Yes.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's a good
Wasn't a
question.
meeting at this point, right?
Right. But I believe,
With this-
you are the deputy, I think you were the second in command on LDAC, weren't you?
I believe I am, but I think I'm going off the board in December.
Yes.
Really? Oh,
I
my.
think you are as well. So
Yeah.
sorry, I'm
My 8
multitasking.
years wrong. It's like short timer.
Yeah, all right.
I don't think LDAC. I'm not even sure. LDAC has to meet once a year according to the
Right, according to the budgets. And that's probably all they'll do now with the committee.
Exactly. I was going to say the committee is really doing that work that LDAC was involved with before.
Yes. I agree. So at some point we will want to look at nominating somebody for that. But yeah, in the foreseeable future, yes, the LDAC committee the task force is going to be doing.
Okay. Well, I have a sense of.
There's Laura. Okay.
But I think one thing is that if somebody is interested and they want to be involved in at least attending those committee meetings, that might be a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I know Greg will, and I will attempt to as well, so.
Yes. And they're great meetings, aren't they, Nick?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm supposed to try to sell it. Okay.
But like David, you could be the rep too, so.
Oh, yeah, exciting.
So,
Welcome, Lori.
and welcome, Laura. I apologize for not sending you the Zoom link before. I'm glad we were able to.
I was watching you on the video.
Oh, good.
Okay, so you know we're pretty high on you. Want to be sure you still have interest.
I am.
Okay, well, we're excited about that. It sounds like that the board supports your being with us, and the mayor does as well. So I think there'll be a few hoops to go through, but for the next 8 months anyway, and then we'll revisit that when the term is up.
Not a problem. Thank you.
So is that the sense of the board?
Yes.
Can I have, we need a motion, please.
I move to whatever you said.
To recommend the appointment of Lori to the mayor.
That's right, to replace Nick for the remainder of his, for the term. A second, please.
Second, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, so we'll forward that to the mayor, and that would be great. Great, so welcome, Lori.
Thank you.
All right.
And Laura, you're welcome to stay on for the duration of the meeting. And you're also welcome not to if you have other things to attend to.
Exactly.
So
I will stay put. I will mute though and just listen. So thank you.
Awesome.
All right, the next issue is the library budget update, and this has been an interesting time. We had our budget committee meeting about a week and a half ago, and Greg dropped on us what he had gotten a few days before, which was the city manager's recommended budget. And my initial reaction was, what was it? It was the opposite of calm. Let's leave it at that. I was pretty surprised, and that was, and the reason is not so much what the numbers did, although they're a concern, and we'll talk about that. But it was the way it happened, Greg was surprised, I was shocked. I mean, nobody had met with us, nobody had said that this was gonna happen. And after the last budget 2 years ago, I really had an agreement with the city manager that this wasn't gonna happen again, that we didn't have to play this out in public, and Greg wasn't gonna get caught in the middle of this thing, and yet here it is again. Now, that said, and after many tranquilizers and many conversations with Greg's moderating influence on my rather irate first sense, and after 7 different iterations of an email that I'm sent to Tony, finally I sent one to him. I put my feelings aside and what's best for the library in front, and here we are. The city's in a lot of trouble. I mean, the city has got a fundamental problem that revenue is just not going to meet the demands of the city. And it's not unique to Oregon City. It's not unique to any county. It's not unique to, I mean, it's every public body right now. And this has little to do yet with the federal nonsense. You know, that could be on top of everything else. But the city is facing, a pretty substantial budget crisis, and hence they went back to see what they could do. So on the 2 issues that came up that you saw my testimony last week at the budget committee, one is that they have revised, even before they got a consultant's report, the way they're allocating costs. And I'll let you in a minute. And frankly, they're not unreasonable. When one looks at the allocation of costs to the library, there's an argument that this could have happened for the last 10 years, and that we would have been in a similar situation with allocated costs that are legitimate costs of HR and communications and technology and maintenance and facilities and all these pieces. But there's a few tweaks and things. We're getting a portion of the city recorder, which doesn't make any sense to me at all, but that's a tiny piece of this puzzle. And as a result, and Tony has offset that by about 50,000 a year. It would have been even higher because the impact would have been greater. And so that really showed that instead of $163,000 that we got from the city in a positive way over the last biennium, we have a negative 169,000. So now how do we make that up? Well, first, as Greg said, we were fortunate enough to get 132,000 so far. It's probably going to be more like 150, 160,000 in taxes. So that's going to offset that amount for this year. Going forward, the issue is totally that we've got to have a new bond measure. I mean, that's going to solve the library district's issues going forward into the future. It's going to take a few years to get there, I fear. And, I want to try to light a fire under this task force in order to make that happen. We did get a new manager position approved, which is amazing because all vacant positions.
Proposed, it's in the proposed.
It's in the proposed budget.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's going to be discussed tomorrow night, which will be there for. And the police are losing 3 positions, which is a big deal. Parks and their vacant positions are not being filled. And there's still a big unknown, and that is the urban renewal district they look like they're going forward. He has in this budget a 25% of what they're able to do this first year and a 50% the second year of what the urban renewal district can take from the taxes before it's distributed. And the urban renewal board has now said they want 100% in both years. Now, if that happens, that's about another $1 million that Tony's going to have to find someplace. I do not envy his position. I think his communication was terrible, and I told him so. And I'm sure we'll work that out. So I do respect him. So that's where we are with the budget. It looks like we're going to get a new manager position, which is exciting if we can get that approved, because we desperately need that to manage the 30 plus bodies that populate this place. And Greg, any other comments?
I have a very quick, it's similar to what I gave budget committee.
Yeah, please.
I'll go through,
Yeah, that's quick.
there's questions?
That is the biggest presentation you've
Don't get used to it, Denise. Right, I gotta figure out a better way to do this. Where's my page? All right, there we go. Okay. Okay. So as David mentioned, the city in general, the city general fund is under significant pressure this biennium. So as David mentioned, there's a net 5-person decrease in order to balance the budget. That's what Tony has brought to the budget committee. Said 2.5 positions in police, 3.25 in parks, a little bit of internal reallocation, but that's kind of the budget environment that the city finds themselves in. I will say that some of the communication difficulties that David identified, my perspective on those is that we have a city budget process where departments go and pitch, we say this is what we want. In normal times, there is plenty of time the finance department gets all those, mashes them all together, and has time to respond back to departments and tweak a little bit. I think this time when they got those initial ones and looking at the revenue forecast and everything else, that was the point that the city realized, there's a bigger problem here. There's a bigger general fund problem. And it took more time for Tony and finance. I think with some departments, they probably had to go back 2 or 3 times, and sharpen the pencils and kind of figure this all out. I'm not trying to excuse, the communication. I'm just, it's more context. Last biennium, we had a ransomware attack, which made things complicated. And this biennium, I think the degree of the, work that was needed was unanticipated. So I think that was part of why, we didn't get normal time. I observed to David that this body is one of the few advisory bodies in the city that actually has budget preparation and presentation in municipal code as part of their duties. And I don't think the city budget process really incorporates that. So that's something I can talk to Matt about. And, like future biennium, we need to build in, hey,
Come to the board.
we need to come. And I try to do my best. I hope people feel that over the last couple biennia that this body has been much more involved in budget stuff than in prior biennia, but still improvements to be made. So that's the context I wanted to give on that. The highlights, as David mentioned, Tony's very supportive of adding a manager position to help better spread our workload. We'll show you the org chart in just a second. We did reclassify. These are things we talked about in the budget committee, and these are things that the numbers just kind of cancel each other out, so you might not see them, but they're operationally very beneficial to us. We were able to also reclassify 2 current part-time employees from a library assistant 1 to library assistant 2, which is much more appropriate given the scope of duties we're asking them to do. We were able to take a little bit of FTE from our on-call budget, move that into our part-time benefited budget, and we were able to max out the hours that our current part-timers are working without going up to the next benefit tier, which we didn't have the financial capability to do. But so, for example, we've got 2 employees that are 20 hours and are going to 26, which great benefit to us, and not a huge financial cost. We have one that we're going from 30 hours to an average of 31 hours, which may not seem like a lot, but I think like scheduling wise, that's going to make a huge difference, having that person available for.
Greg, question. When you budgeted that, the manager position, did you phase that in or didn't?
We put it in just knowing that we have a recruitment process that we're going to need to go through, knowing that we actually have to figure out where this person is going to sit, where their office is going to be. We scheduled it for January, I believe. So we gave ourselves 6 months, to kind of, because we have to write the job description. It doesn't exist. So there's a lot of prep work that we're going to have to do.
And they'll come in at a certain level with like certification or I'm just thinking of like the manager position will just in itself cost more than.
Yes, it'll be on the manager salary schedule. We'll have to talk with HR to do a salary study and a compensation study. I presume it will be similar to Denise's current salary range is, but that's something we'll talk with HR about. And so, but we're happy about that position. I'm envisioning that they will directly manage our adult and youth services departments. Theoretically, I manage them now, and honestly, I don't have sufficient time to be able to do a great job of that. So this will really help with that. This position will really help with the outreach that we want to start doing, giving us some capacity to actually plan and coordinate that, and hopefully. I have to once again thank Denise for everything that she does around here. She does absolutely so much, and it makes me feel bad when I ask Denise to do it. So the other thing you'll see in the budget is there's about $900,000 in capital projects that we proposed. These are both scheduled repair and replacement that we need to do, as well as some projects that we've identified that will help with some operational enhancements. Some things we talked about with the budget committee that were not included in the budget proposal. We had talked about giving some money to help fund an additional employee in the communications office. With the general fund pressures, that's not going to happen. So there's not an additional employee in city communications.
There's just one. There's just
Hannah is full time. I think, so there's 2, but Hannah focuses more on kind of community outreach, and which means Jared gets all the social media and print and all
I was
that
just
stuff.
curious. Yes.
Yep. So operationally, we're going to have to figure out how we go forward with maintaining some of that work internally, which we'll be able to figure out. We'd also talked about maybe asking for another library assistant too, a part-time library assistant too, to help with the Carnegie desk. After I ran the numbers the first time around, I wasn't terribly comfortable doing that quite yet. And then after we got the, the full, but knowing the situation, that was a good thing that we didn't do that. So, so the other high level things, that there was an 11% increase in our gross general fund contribution. There's about, given the impacts that the general fund is seeing all over, there's about $100,000 that we were directly impacted by, which Tony was very, he let the budget committee know, he let all the department managers know. Most of the cuts that are being proposed for general fund departments are in those departments who are primarily funded by the general fund. Since we have such small exposure to it, our support of these efforts is commensurate with the amount of support that we get.
Is there a thought then that the city doesn't need to absorb the library costs because the funding is coming from the district? Or is that just my assumption?
No. There has always, it has never been clearly defined.
Yeah.
So there is certainly agreement and understanding that the city, so both when the district passed and honestly when the ballot measure to build this building passed,
Sure.
there was recognition that the city has skin in the game for supporting the library. It was never intended, 39 cents per thousand is not sufficient to do it. So there's always recognition that the city should support. I think some of the challenge that I have experienced is that it's never been articulated. What does that exactly look like? And so in a biennium like this, where there are general fund pressures, that picture changes. And which again is why if we can go out for a larger district rate, a higher district rate, in an ideal world, I wouldn't have to rely on the general fund at all, right? There would be a district rate that was sufficient to pay for operations, to pay for capital repair and replace, and projected to be sufficient for 10 to 15 years. And as everybody knows, Heidi, I'm sure you know very well, cost of everything are going up. We're right in negotiations with unions right now, so.
These benefits have gone up 10-15%.
Yeah. And then for us, federal grant revenue is uncertain. There's about $100,000 that we budgeted for in various places. If we don't get it, it's not the end of the world, but it's just there is some uncertainty there.
And state revenue?
State revenue, we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
What comes through the state library, some of it.
Yes, the biggest would be Ready to Read. But the way Ready to Read is funded by the state general fund. It is not funded by federal IMLS money. And it is a program that the legislature has always been strongly supportive of. And they actually increased it in the governor's proposed budget this year. Not by as much as I wanted, but still a little bit.
Yeah.
So that I'm pretty confident is safe.
When will you know about the federal piece, or not know, as the case might be?
So the IM.
Foolish question, I know, but your
So
best
the
guess.
big two components, the $100,000 exposure, we have the outreach vehicle. So we have a grant in progress for about $50,000. That is completely, first we have to be awarded the grant. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but if we are, they're waiting until they figure out if they're actually going to get money from the feds, because that's all done through LSTA, Library Services and Technology Act money. 25% of the state library staff is also funded by this federal money. And so they did not even know as of last week what was going to happen to 25% of their staff come June 30th. So thankfully, last Wednesday, they did get a communication from somebody at IMLS, of somebody who's left because 3/4 of the staff have been eliminated, that the first half of the congressionally appropriated amount has been approved. And which is good. It's a good sign. I'm not comfortable until it hits the bank. But so they've at least gotten confirmation that is coming. they communicated earlier this week that they will not be making any announcements about the LSTA grants until they receive confirmation that the second half of the 2025 funding has been approved. And
That makes sense.
yeah.
Now,
And in normal times, this all would have happened already. This is just, and it's money that has been appropriated and approved by Congress. So
That doesn't seem to make a difference.
doesn't
Yeah.
make it safe.
no, it doesn't.
So where we are with the city right now is the budget committee is meeting. They've had one meeting, one public meeting so far. They're going through the city budgets department by department. Tomorrow night, they'll be doing Parks and Rec and us, the library. I don't anticipate that we're gonna get any more surprises, but the biggest thing is the urban renewal business, because that's gonna put incredible pressure on city management. That whole process is so bizarre to me that they have that kind of power, but so be it. So that's where that is, and we'll just keep you apprised.
So this is the org chart. That's where that library services manager is going to go. One of the things we're keen on is making sure that with 3 managers, we've got coverage every day of the week. So we'll be figuring out some sort of staggered schedule. I talked about the staffing. I won't repeat this, but one thing I did want to point out is at the level of 20.25 FTE, it is the first time since the formation of the district in 2008 that the Oregon City Library is meeting the aspirational FTE standards that are in the IGA, which it only took us 16 years to get there. So, that's positive. That's good. I'm happy about that. Capital projects, I talked about some of these. If you've got questions on any of these, I can certainly answer them. But again, they're a combination of things that are scheduled to happen in the building, which may or may not be as expensive as we have budgeted, but we have to budget the money just so we have the ability to do them. The biggest one is carpet replacement. I know we'll have to do that because it's looking pretty bad in some places. And then the other things that we have budgeted are outreach vehicle, resurfacing the parking lot, book locker, and some other smaller items. This is our general fund contribution over time. So as you can see, it's gone from $200,000 in 15-16 to $325 in the second year of the biennium. These are the internal service charges that are so yes. So they have almost doubled since last year. I did talk to our finance director, and he has both assured me that there are no plans to basically everything that should be assessed out to non-general fund departments is now being assessed. So he does not anticipate any new categories of internal service charges. As David mentioned, they are in the midst of working with a consultant to make sure that the allocation methodology makes sense. Right now, most of it is based on FTE count. And for some of those things, that might not be the best way, the most representative way to do it. So he has also assured me that process will happen this fiscal year. I have told him I think he will probably be invited to come talk to the library board and share, some of the potential different allocation models or this, and he was very, very happy to do that. So keep you posted. And this is one thing. This is one of my hopefully moderating things. I did want to show that, from this, there certainly is an argument that what we were experiencing back in 15-16, was we were getting a nice benefit of not having these charges allocated. So what I tried to do here is to kind of say, if we had been allocated all those charges that the city felt should have been allocated all along, and kind of back predict them with 3% inflation, here's kind of what they might have been. And the increase is not as dramatic as you see going from one year to the other. So I I want to provide that context, for that. So just information.
Honorable, but.
I have a comment about allocations.
Yes, Nick.
After being on LDAC and seeing what all the other libraries are being, what kind of allocations they're getting from their city, we were off the scale low. I mean, it was so dramatic compared to, the other libraries are probably getting, we're kind of getting in line with how other cities have been doing allocations for their library. And so it was always nice in LDAC to be able to use that as the fact that we were so low, because we were always being debated about how we were spending money for capital. So it was our offset to the positive in those kind of discussions. But we definitely have been very, very, very low compared to the other cities.
Thanks for that context, and I think that's fair. I mean, as I said, my response was communication and the suddenness of it. All at once from one biennium to the next, we went up 95%. That should take some discussion and some debate and some stroking and
Some warning.
Yeah, indeed, and that didn't happen. So it didn't happen to Greg either. I mean, it's not like Greg kept anything from us. He was as surprised as was I. The other thing that I've asked Greg to do and is now take a look at going forward. There's going to be a cliff. We know that. We think it's about 5 or 6 years from now, something like that. 6 years from now, where our reserves at the reserve level that's required will not be adequate to sustain. So again, the emphasis has got to be in getting a new bond measure out to the community, and during that period of time, getting a successful bond passed with a rate that will support the library, and then I think we'll be okay. So, any other questions?
I had a question relative to the new hours, and if you've gotten a lot of comments or gotten comments from patrons about the new hours for the library.
Yeah, the comments that I've heard have been positive. I personally have not heard any negative comments from folks. We've had a couple people who did not get the information, despite our efforts, and came and said, "Oh, I thought you were gonna be open when I came at 6:30." I said, "No, we're sorry," but they understood the reason why. I don't think our staff have gotten any.
Not that I've heard.
So yeah, it seems to have been positive, and I've been here on a couple of Sundays, and you've been here on a couple of Sundays, and people are here. It's definitely. Yeah. So I'll run some numbers in a couple months and kind of look at that.
So the numbers that we have as far as what we would get from the general fund and the other funding sources, there wouldn't be changes to personnel or to services or programs, or is that something you're looking for?
This biennium,
Let's say input on, but
I mean, and I don't think this is likely, but let's take worst case scenario, right? Absolute worst case scenario is that the budget committee says it is unacceptable for us to lose 2.5 police officers. There's absolutely no money anywhere. So we are taking general fund from everybody.
Yeah.
So that would be a $300,000 hit for us per year. We'd be able to absorb that for a few years. If that were the case, I would probably go and have a conversation with Tony and with you. It's like, we would probably say, do we do the manager position? Knowing that that's the case. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I want to be real clear that is worst case scenario.
Well, it's the urban renewal thing that's going to really.
So yeah, that's I don't know. There are some.
I guess I'm not sure that I understand the urban renewal committee.
Yes.
And what is the funding that you're referring to?
So the way urban renewal works, this is my very simple version.
Please.
And Nick knows these things too, so Nick will correct me if I'm wrong. So when you institute an urban renewal plan, you freeze the assessed value at a certain level.
Okay.
Right? And as assessed value grows, there is this difference. And so everything below the freeze level gets taxed as normal. So whatever percent goes to the general fund, little goes to the library district, but everything above that level that is taxed goes to the urban renewal agency. And they use it to fund projects that in theory raise the whole base of the city. And it's for a time, I think they're like 20-year plans or something like that.
But we have to approve those as voters.
So yes, so the budget committee says, so the projects, let's start with the budget committee. So the budget committee says, okay, this year we anticipate the difference between the frozen level and this level is gonna be such, how much of that property value do you want to levy taxes on? And so when they built the city budget, they assumed that it was gonna be 25% the first year and 50% the next year, which meant that the other money that they're not taxing would go to the general fund because it's not being used by urban renewal. But now urban renewal is saying, let's tax 100% both years, which means that nothing extra goes, and the budget that was built and prepared was not based on that assumption.
Thank you.
So that's that. And then yes, the problem, one of the challenges in Oregon City is that the charter says you may not, any indebtedness of over a year requires a vote of the people. And indebtedness is not whether you have money in the bank. Indebtedness is if you've contracted with somebody for a project that lasts longer. So even if urban renewal had all the money in the bank for a project, if it's going to take longer than a year, it has to go out to a vote.
Okay.
And nothing has really passed. The electorate has not, there hasn't been a project that they have approved recently.
So that's.
But urban renewal is its own organization. The only thing that I'm aware of that there are allocations that go to urban renewal from the city, but it's a separate organization. But they have the same type of allocations that we're seeing. Those categories that to operate the urban renewal district. But it's totally separate. It doesn't have anything to do with general funds other than the fact that they could be taking more allocation or whatever.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that Tony, Matt, our finance director, have said would be really helpful in future biennia is if the urban renewal process wrapped up completely before the city budget process started. Because right now, they don't know what the Urban Renewal Commission is going to say on the proposal by the Urban Renewal Budget Committee, and that would be nice to know.
So the only other thing that I have about the budget process is we did ask for one of your folks to join the budget committee, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I'd like it to happen in future. That's just a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on budget or on?
And then just the scheduled meeting. So next meeting is, like Dave said, tomorrow.
We'll see.
That's when I anticipate will be our turn. If there are any questions from the budget committee, I will be there. Tony and Matt generally, they take the first round of questions, and if it gets really deep into the weeds, they will ask us to come up. Honestly, I'm certainly hoping that there are not a lot of questions and that they just move on.
The city still has about, the city is not taxing up to the level that they're allowed to. So there is some flexibility there, but the sense I got from the commission, particularly commission members that were sitting, is that there's very little appetite other than Denise to levy up to the maximum, that they really want to keep that for future disasters. And, that's where they are.
Yep, they do. And I do credit Tony. Tony has been multiple times very clear and very direct that this budget, is, if you do not want these cuts, you will either have to find a new revenue source, be that taxes, be that fees, be that going out for a general obligation bond, or you will have to cut somewhere else. And so I think he is very much trying to stress that message to them that these are your options, but kind of just leaving it as is and hoping that it all magically gets better is not a realistic option.
There was one other thing that came up, and that is that Oregon City has one of the highest percentages of non-taxable property of municipalities. It's 23%.
Really?
Yeah, because we're a county seat, so all of the county stuff,
Schools.
all the schools, all the city thing, all the not-for-profits and churches and all that are not in the tax base, and that's very high.
Yeah.
The average is around 8 or 9%, we're at 23%.
Yeah, I think even Salem, I just read an article, Salem with all their state properties, only 8%.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's an issue, and that may mitigate that if they want to raise more money, they may do it through fees, because fees become more democratic and cover everybody. So it's if it's a water fee or the Parks District fee or something,
Yeah.
everybody has to pay that. So that's where we are with the budget. A lot of fun.
It's a finite pie.
Yeah, well,
It
it's
is-
very much.
It is definitely a finite pie.
It's the theory of the finite pie. I used to use that as a budget manager myself, it's just like, there's only so much pie.
It's actually a tart now.
I was thinking of croissant.
Yeah, donut. There we go.
Hopefully, we have two pies. We have our district pie.
Yes, we do.
So
Yeah.
hopefully we can get a bigger
Yeah.
district pie.
And then
Just
we'll-
focus on that pie.
That's where.
That's the pie that we.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on budget? Great. All right, communications, foundation.
Well, as you know, we had our foundation fundraiser kickoff back on April 4th or whatever that was. And it was quite successful. It's a reminder that it was a kickoff, that we will be, as a foundation, developing a longer range plan to raise $100,000, which is the first level of target. And this was just the beginning. And we don't have all the details about the bigger long range picture worked out yet. The external environment impacts these kinds of things as well. So, but the good news is that we raised approximately $12,114. Some at the event, some following the event, and some pending. So we're pretty happy about that. It was planned as a low-key event. No major speaker, no huge, blast out push, but, testing the waters. Are people going to support these sort of, I wouldn't say non-tangible, but less sexy, less sexy kinds of requests. I mean, building a new building, the kinds of things that happened when this building was being built. And then, a big splash for Dolly Parton. Those are very visible, tangible, sexy, kinds of things. But book lockers and a book van are a little harder to sell. And some of the technology that's going to be needed and that we want to provide support for is a little less visible. So we're pretty happy with that amount. There were 80 tickets sold. There were some comps, and the event went off quite nicely, we felt. So I can't say exactly what's going to happen next because we're going to plan that.
It was lovely. The event was truly nice.
It was a great
Nicely done.
venue. The Ainsworth House is just so open and light. And, I think that really helps to create a giving mentality when it's a very positive, upbeat, sunny kind of atmosphere. So we're appreciative of the site, actually. So
Yeah, the site was lovely. The one observation that we had is that the average age of the participants there was probably close to 70.
Well, we did discuss whether that was the best time, 4:30 to 6. I heard several,
That's a good
I
point.
had feedback from several people I know, I can't get there.
Yeah.
I don't even get off till
Sure.
5:30, 6 o'clock, and with
Yeah,
traffic,
that's a good
we're knowing so many people out migrate from the county to go to work that we're thinking that maybe not have been the ideal time to capture the actual, working people
Sure.
who might be able to, donate more because their income is still growing. And so that's part of the consideration for our future planning is like, what's the best time for these things? Who's our target market at that time?
Sure.
We learned a lot and we'll continue to learn. So we felt very positively about it.
Yeah, that's good reason. That was good.
And the feedback that I got from participants about the outreach, the initiative, all very positive. It was it resonated with people, right? They said, oh, that makes perfect sense. Yes, you have this really large service area. Of course you need to get out there. And of course you need to, explore different ways to do that. And yeah, So that was
Yeah, it's
very-
just a message that we have to be consistent
Yeah.
about and loud about,
Yeah.
you know, so, and then we can do that,
Yes.
you know, so.
Thank you. Friends,
As usual, the Friends are working to contribute to library-specific projects. They approved Star Wars, the raffle items, the Legos and a lightsaber. Which is pretty nifty.
Yeah,
And,
we'll have to have 2 lightsabers this year.
oh,
So,
two?
yes,
Well, I thought we were just getting donation of one and the other was.
I was able to, we have a good relationship with Saber Forge.
Okay,
They also, books and graphic novels for the Juneteenth celebration.
yes,
And looking at the other side, the revenue side, they're thinking with the success of the shelves down here of possibly having similar, although smaller shelves in local businesses, which would allow people, once they go into Walmart or wherever, to say, oh, maybe I'll buy a couple of books here too. Which is kind of nice.
Mhm.
great.
It's a good idea, really.
And I will, on the books for the Juneteenth giveaway, the amount is it was $5,000 for that book giveaway, so.
5,770 for the Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, so yes, very generous, we're very appreciative of the Friends of the Library.
For sure. Youth,
Yes, yeah, so they have been hard at work making decisions on the summer reading challenge. So they have chosen their prize books as well as the prizes for the final baskets. But they also decided to go with a bingo card again this year. And for the bingo card, they have been trying to strategize on how to increase participation as well as increase the number of blackouts on the card. So they have increased the number of prize drawings that they'll do, and they'll do them throughout the summer. So some each month instead of just at the end of summer. And then their final season, end of season meeting is June 29th. And then they'll pick back up again when school starts. So
Good.
good.
And it just came, their TV, that is the final part of their new gaming station, it came yesterday and it should be installed tomorrow.
Good.
Yeah, I think somebody had it up here and just
Yeah.
rolled it downstairs.
Uh-huh, so I go by.
Yeah.
That's the old TV, so they have a brand new unit where they can store things, and we have a brand new TV to go on there.
Great.
So, very excited
Nice.
about that.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Just one last comment, and that is that I'm very happy to have served on the board. And I have to say that I listened to quite a few of the other committee meetings, advisory committee meetings, and I have to say that we have the best board of any committee in the city.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic. We have great representation and great people that are actively participating in the meeting. So I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we wish you well. All right. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.